the Heart Connection podcast, lovelies. This is a place to connect, to inspire, to heal, and to empower you to live a healthy, happy, and purposeful life from your heart. I'm Pavlina Jirushkova, your host. I'm an intuitive health and life coach, and I help women to connect to themselves, to step into their power and their purpose, and to heal from within. I believe that all issues we are experiencing in life, physical, mental, and emotional, arise from being disconnected from your heart, from your true self, and I'm going to help you to open your mind, to connect to your heart, and to heal from within. So let's dive right in. Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the Heart Connection podcast, Beautiful Soul. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy that you are here, no matter if it's your first time or you've been listening regularly. I'm so happy that you are here, so thank you for listening. And before I get to the topic of today's episode, I just want to remind you that the waitlist for the Conscious Healing Blueprint is open, so you can join the waitlist now. The Conscious Healing Blueprint is a new program I will be opening for enrollment soon. Is based on the new paradigm of conscious healing, which I spoke about in last week's episode, in episode 16. And it's the next level online program for women with chronic health issues who are ready to step into their power and become their own self-healers and transform their health and life. So if this is resonating with you or you would like to find out more, you can go to episode 16 and listen more about the new paradigm of conscious healing and about the Conscious Healing Blueprint. And you can also sign up for the waitlist, so you would be one of the first people to find out when the doors open for enrollment, because there will be only limited time and limited spots for the Conscious Healing Blueprint. So the best way to be informed and be up to date and to be ready is to sign up for the waitlist. So, and the topic of today's episode is Help, My Job is Making Me Sick. And this is something I may have mentioned before in some of the past episodes, and that's something that's been a really important topic for me in my life, and many of my clients struggle with chronic health issues that are that are stress related, stress from work, from hustling, from working too much, and stress and overwhelm, and is causing burnout and many other issues, physical, mental, emotional. And this may be true for you if you are working a corporate job, but it can be true for you if you're self-employed as well, if you're an entrepreneur. And that's something I experienced firsthand myself when I was employed, when I was working for other people, but also when I transitioned into working full-time in my own business, because the patterns we learn during our life, we then, unless we work through them, we then take them with us to our businesses as well. And that's something I've been working on a lot in the last couple of years, but especially this year, because that's been something that's been difficult for me, finding the balance between trying to run my business as best I can and trying to do it all and serve the best I can, but at the same time not working too much so I wouldn't get burned out or too stressed, so it wouldn't be damaging for my body, my mental health, and for my emotional health as well. So I want to dive into this a little bit more today, and I want to start with, even though I've mentioned this on this podcast in the very beginning and throughout some other episodes, but how I even got to what I'm doing today is I was struggling with many health issues from stress, chronic stress, and working too hard. And all of this has brought me to where I am today, because I was about 5 years ago, I was working a management position, and it was a really demanding position, and from all the stress and not enough self-care and just too much stress, too much pressure, and not working in a job that I was meant to be working in the first place. It wasn't, I thought it was my dream job, but it wasn't. And it was just, I wasn't fulfilled. I was so stressed. I was under so much pressure, and I wasn't fulfilled at all. And all of this and all the pressure I've been putting on myself as well, because my whole life I haven't been feeling good enough. And this was the first job in my life where I thought I would actually be appreciated, and I was trying to prove to myself and everyone else that I can do it, even though I've never done anything like that before. I worked management positions before, but not in such a high demanding environment, and I never had so much responsibility. And yeah, it was just a lot of pressure. And I was just trying to prove everyone that, including myself, that I can do it, because it was a prestigious job. And after working for so many years, jobs that weren't prestigious or nearly prestigious, they were just, I thought, not worth it, but I just wasn't able to get a better job before. So when I finally got this job, I needed to prove to everyone, including myself, that I really can do it, and that I am worth it, and that I am good enough to do this job, So I was pushing so hard, and I was pretending how well I'm doing, how I'm managing everything, and everybody thought I was doing such a good job at work. But deep down, I was so miserable, and I was so stressed, and I was crying every day when I got home. And over time, it started manifesting mentally, physically, emotionally, and I developed several different chronic health issues, including a really bad flare-up of eczema, thyroid issues, digestive issues, and so on and so on. And I've talked about this before, so I don't want to go into too much detail. But, chronic stress can play such a big role in your physical health, especially if it's based on some of these old patterns we develop during childhood, during growing up, when, especially if you have a parent like I had that himself wasn't feeling good enough, but I always thought that he was so confident and so smart and everything. And I never felt any of these things, because not just him, but other people in my life were probably unconsciously making me feel that I wasn't good enough. And I was trying so hard to please them, and it was never good enough. It's really important when you are working in a stressful environment, no matter if you are employed or you are self-employed. It's always important to take care of yourself and be aware of your energy management, be aware of your emotional and mental health, be aware of what's going on inside of you, because it may start with you feeling tired or you getting colds or sinus infections or often, or, just simple little things that we thought that they just don't mean anything. But over time, if you don't pay attention, then your body will start getting louder and you will develop over time different chronic health issues if you don't pay attention to your body, if you don't work on stress management and so on. And often when you're working a corporate job, then most of the time, especially if you are on a journey of self-development, or a spiritual journey, then you might not feel fulfilled in the job you are at. That was the case for me for many, many years. I never knew what I actually wanted in life. I knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't know how. And then over time, when I got sick, I actually, through trying to heal myself, I realized that I want to help other people become healthy and heal from the inside out and on all levels and so on. So it became my purpose, and this is where my health issues were guiding me the whole time. And that's often the case for many of us, because we live in a time when a lot of people are awakening and becoming light workers, stepping into their purpose and so on. And we don't want to just work jobs that aren't fulfilling, that are draining, that are making us stressed and sick. So when you start developing health issues as a result of stress, and it can be so different for you than it was for me, it can be signs of burnout. You can of course, you can have rashes or eczema like I had, but it can be anything. It can be physical pain, it can be anxiety, it can be anything, emotional issues. You might be, from all the unfulfillment and frustration, you might be getting triggered easily. That's also a sign of when we're feeling stuck. I've experienced that many times in my life when I was in a situation, in jobs, in relationships as well, or different situations when I wasn't fulfilled and I was feeling stuck there. I didn't see a way out. I would be getting triggered easily. I would be getting angry at people for no apparent reason and so on. So your emotions can be another indicator that you are not in alignment with your highest self. You're not in alignment with your purpose, and you're not where you are supposed to be or where you want to be. So pay attention to your emotions, to your to your mental health. It can be anxiety, it can be anything else, but also to physical symptoms, from pain to rashes to any other symptoms, So the difference between when you work for someone and then when you transition into your business is that when you are employed, then you feel like the job is making you stress and sick, maybe your boss or your colleagues or whatever. And then when you decide to when you find what you want to do in life, when you create a business for yourself and you decide to transition into your business full time, at first you think, now everything's going to be easy. I'm going to be happy. I'm just going to be doing what I want to do. And it's not like that for most people. It's not easy because there's so many things. For me, one thing was that within a few months after I transitioned from employment into my business full-time, which took me a few years, but before I was brave enough to quit my office job and became an entrepreneur full-time. Few months after that, because I wanted to, do it all. I wanted to do all the things other people were telling me, all the business coaches, everyone, they tell you, you have to hustle. You need to do so many things. And within 3 months after transitioning into my business full time, I got burnt out again and I couldn't do anything for a month afterwards. So it's really important to take it easy and listen to your body, listen to your own guidance, not always what everyone else is telling you, because it may have worked for them, but it might not work for you because we are all different and we are each on our own path. So it's always, you can be inspired by what other people are doing or what people who have been in business are suggesting that you should do, but always check in with yourself, always check in with your inner voice, with your highest self, and see if that is the path for you, if that's aligning for you, because what may have worked for them might not work for you. And you might have to work through a lot of limiting beliefs and mind patterns, from, like I mentioned, I had to work through, and I'm still working through it just today. And I shared it on social media that I had to do a lot of tapping this morning, a lot of releasing. It might have been the full moon energy, but also this old mind pattern of mine came up of not feeling good enough. I got triggered by something I saw on social media, and this old pattern came up, and that's something I've been working on for many years, and working through, but now and then it still would come up because there can be many, many layers of it, and it can be based on my own experience, what I went through throughout my life, but it can be even deeper and go into your ancestral lines, because I know that's something my father struggled with without even maybe consciously being aware of it, and maybe some other of my ancestors. And it's something that I may have experienced in some of my past lives as well. So it's really deeply ingrained. It's really deeply rooted. And now and then it will pop up and I have to work through it. And that's something I have been working on and I am conscious of. And the important thing is to not run away from it. And really, when this comes up, feel it, consciously be aware of what's going on. Why am I feeling this way? And feel what's going on inside, and then you can work through it. My favorite way of working through limiting beliefs, mind patterns, emotional blocks, and so on is EFT. And I use it almost every day, sometimes multiple times a day for different things. But particularly for this, I've used many different things, but EFT is always, or most of the time, the best tool and the quickest tool to transmute this pattern and the limiting belief. There might be different tools, but for me, this works best, and I use it with my clients. This is the first thing I teach them, and what I'll be teaching in the Conscious Healing Blueprint as well, how you can use it. So yeah, EFT is definitely one of my most potent and most used tools I use for myself and my clients. So definitely, if you don't know much about EFT, I've done an episode about EFT before, and I will definitely speak more about it in the future as well. So another thing that might come up when you are working through these things, or especially when you transition into your business, or before you even transition, because when you start sharing what you learn and how you can help other people, sometimes we get scared, because it is really scary to be seen and to share our gifts and to share our heart, because many of us have what's called a witch wound, and that's based on something, and especially as women, if you are being called to work in self-help as a spiritual teacher, as a coach, and as a light worker, you probably have the witch wound. And the witch wound is, if you've never heard of it, it's based on something you went through, or your soul went through in a past life, and it means you may have been a healer, a witch, and you probably got punished for doing what you were doing. So for speaking your truth, for helping people, and often we ended up as women being burnt on the stake, or we would be killed in a different way, but drowned, or there were many ways in the medieval times, and many of us went through this, and it requires healing, definitely. If you are an aspiring coach, light worker, healer, and you feel scared to share your gifts and to be seen, that's something you definitely should look into, because healing your witch wound is really, really important and powerful when you actually heal it. And for me, it was the case as well. It took me 2 years, or more than 2 years, before I actually quit my job, before I decided that I can do this. And I had to again work through many, many things, and it can manifest physically as well, like emotionally. It's so scary. We feel sometimes like we are going to die when we supposed to share ourselves on social media, or especially on camera. It's so scary. And I've had this fear of public speaking my whole life, and I'm sure that it's connected to that as well. And especially being seen on video or speaking in front of a group of people, it's always been really scary. And since I've been doing this work, I've discovered, of course, that I was a witch, and I was a healer in past lives, and I was many different things, and I had to work through this to come to where I am today. And I keep working on these things and healing these things, because healing is never you heal it once and you are done. You may have to go through this several times. There's more layers to this. There may be more part of it that maybe it would be too much for you to trying to heal it all at once. So going step by step, letting yourself be guided by your inner voice, by your intuition, by your soul, and releasing it slowly, working through what is coming up in the present and releasing one wound, one block, one limiting belief at the time. Over time, you'll see it will get easier and easier. Another thing I wanted to mention is working in alignment with your cycle. This is something I've learned over the last few years as well, and it's been really helpful for me, especially when working in my business, to align my business with my menstrual cycle. And I'm not an expert on this, but I keep learning more and more, and the more I've been connected to my body and to my intuition, the easier it's gotten. But for me, I can usually feel already a few days before my period that I get more tired, and then it's important to take some time off at the beginning of my period, which is usually the case for most women, that they feel more tired, there is less energy, they might, have period cramps or whatever, and it's always a sign from your body. And it's important during this time to rest more and tune in and listen to your body, connect to your soul, connect to your highest self, because you are the most connected. Your two brain hemispheres are most connected. You receive messages during this time easier than other times. So this is a really great time for rest and reflection. And on the other hand, around your ovulation, you're the most productive, you have the most energy, and so on and so on. There's 4 phases of your cycle, and during each phase, you can focus on different things. And I'm not going to go into too much detail because we would be here for a long time, and that's not the topic of this episode. Maybe I will do an episode just focused on your cycle or on cyclical business in the future, and maybe I will even invite someone to the podcast who is an expert on cyclical business. We'll see. I've been thinking about inviting some guests, so that could be something, I could look into if you wanted to find out more about cyclical business and your cycle in general, because this is really important for women to work with your cycle. And for me, since I started working with my cycle in my business, that's helped a lot with my energy management and with my business management as well. So that's another thing. When you still employed, it may be more difficult, because in the corporate world, people don't really pay attention to cycles, and you're supposed to work 9 to 5 or whatever, and it's based on the male cycle, which is 24 hours, as the female cycle is 28 days. So we both cyclical, men and women, but men have a quick 24-hour cycle, and that's what the corporate environment is based on. So that's why you're supposed to have the same amount of energy every day, work 9 to 5 every day, because it's based on male hormone cycles, but it doesn't usually work for us women. So in the corporate world, it might be more difficult, but if the company you work for is more open to things, maybe you would be allowed to work from home when you on your period, or you would be able to take a bit of time off, or at least rest after you come home from work if possible, focus more on self-care during this time. Because if you don't, it may influence the rest of your cycle, and you may feel it in different parts of the cycle. You may be more tired at the end of your cycle, or you may experience migraines, or I have a client who owns her own business, and she is in the hustle mode a lot, and I just talked with her about it recently, and we realized that she is not very connected to her body, or she hasn't been, and she's just been hustling and working, and she's been experiencing migraines every month before her period, because she's never taking time off during her cycle. So then, it may show up differently for each and every one of you, but it doesn't mean that it's only what you do during one phase of the cycle will influence that phase of the cycle, because it may actually influence the whole cycle. So there's different things to focus on, but this is, I find, the most important thing, to focus more on self-care, and if possible, rest more or take time off at least during the first 2 or 3 days of your period. Yeah, and generally focusing on self-care and work-life balance is really, really important as well not just when we're talking about chronic illness, but overall, if you want to be healthy and well, then maybe working less could be something that could be beneficial for you. And working less doesn't mean that you would create less results. It's just working smarter, working intuitively, and focusing on your guidance, and that's another thing that could be difficult for someone. It's certainly been difficult for me at times, because I have a really strong mind. I have a lot of strong ingrained mind patterns and beliefs, and a really strong mind. So focusing my guidance and trust that I'm going in the right direction, that I'm doing the right things, because sometimes it may not even make sense what your soul, what your highest self, what your inner voice is telling you. So following the guidance can be really scary, but ultimately, if you're not in alignment with your soul purpose, with what you came here to do, to this lifetime, then you will probably not feel great either. You may be fine physically, but you may not feel great emotionally or mentally. You may get frustrated, you may get tired, you might get headaches, you might get different symptoms. And that's been definitely the case for me, and is the case for many women, especially if you are intuitive, if you are sensitive, if you are empathetic, then and the more and more you do this work, the more sensitive you get to these things. So for me, it's often the case if I'm not in alignment with my soul purpose, if I'm not in alignment with my intuition, then I would experience some physical symptoms. My eczema would flare up, or I get a headache, or I'm tired. So really listening to these and understanding these messages your body and your soul are giving you, it's really, really important. And it might not be easy in the beginning, but over time, the more you understand the symptoms and the messages and the guidance, the easier it will get and the less symptoms you will be experiencing. But it's, I work on this pretty much every day. I start my day with working through limiting beliefs that come up for me. And, that's something I would ask my inner voice each day in the morning. And then I spend some time working through this. I use EFT again, I would release the limiting belief, that the mind pattern that came up, the resistance that's coming up. And even, for example, before I started recording this podcast episode, because the energy is the full moon today. The energy is quite potent today, and I've already done a lot of releasing today, and I'm feeling tired, the energy of the full moon, and my period is coming up soon as well. So I have been feeling tired, and I didn't feel like recording this podcast, and all this resistance started coming up. So before I started recording, I spent probably 10 minutes of going through this resistance, these patterns that started coming up, and I tapped through it, and then I just started recording, and it's been so much easier than, sometimes we really don't feel like doing something, or we have resistance to doing things. And that's another thing, this approach to, or this mindset that you have to do something, or changing it to the belief that you get to do it. It's a privilege to do it, to serve, to help people, to do this work, because not everyone can do it. Not everyone has the courage to do this. Not everyone will leave their job and go into the unknown, because, like I said, it's scary, and not everyone who feels called to do this work will do it, or they will wait 20 years. When I was 20, I wanted to become a therapist, but I thought I wasn't good enough. So I didn't even try to get into the program. And when I went to uni, I studied something completely different. And for almost 20 years, 15 years, I was working jobs that weren't fulfilling. And after, in my mid-30s, I started realizing that or early 30s, I started realizing I actually do want to help people. And at mid-30s, I started realizing what I actually want to do. But it took me such a long time, because I was scared to do this, and I wasn't feeling good enough. I wasn't feeling like I can do this, because it was scary, and I had to work through many things to get here, and I'm still working on it, and I might have to keep working on it, but I can feel the changes, and I know I've walked such a long way since the time I wanted to become a therapist 20 years ago. And it hasn't always been easy. I went through so many difficult situations and so many difficult family situations and work situations and relationship situations and personal situations and so on and so on. And here I am, working through it still, step by step. It's not always easy, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it, guys. My whole life, I was experiencing some health issues. My whole life. Oh, there was always something, from eczema when I was a child, throughout my whole childhood and then teenage years and my adult life until today, because it still sometimes flares up when I'm not in alignment, when I'm not paying attention to what's going on inside. So, and there have been many other things, many other health issues, many other mental health issues, emotional things. And it's a lifelong journey, but I'm here for it because I have chosen this path. I know it's not easy, but when you realize that it is your divine purpose and that's what you came here to do, you can't go back. You can't go back to not knowing. You can't go back to not caring. You can't go back to just living unconsciously. You have to keep going. You have to keep learning. You have to keep healing. You have to keep releasing and up-leveling and stepping into your power and purpose. But it's so worth it. So one or a few last things I wanted to mention is, and it's another thing that's been a major thing for me, is how can I experience joy, and at work? How can I make this more fun? How can I make this more joyful? Because when you're having fun, it's always easier, and abundance always comes when you're enjoying what you are doing. So joy is something, and like I said, you can just keep asking, how can I make this more fun? How can I make this more enjoyable, what I'm doing right now? And when you work through the resistance and you work on energy alignment, because that's really important, sometimes more important than working through your limiting beliefs and through the mindset. Energy alignment before action, that's something that you might have heard before. To get into alignment with your highest self, with your inner joy, with the peace within, with what you want to achieve, then it's much easier to do what you want to do and get to where you want to be. So connecting to your joy, to your highest self, working on energy alignment, setting intentions and goals, because if you don't know where you want to go, then it's much more difficult to get where you want to be. So setting intentions and goals every day, every week, every month, every year can be something really helpful as well. And I think this is pretty much it, what I wanted to share today. But just to recap, if you are experiencing health issues that you think might be connected to work stress, or that might be connected to burnout from working too much, or that might be connected to some limiting beliefs around your business or your self-worth and so on, then first thing, always I would ask your inner voice, what's the reason behind it? Why are you feeling this way? Why are you experiencing the symptoms? And then follow your inner voice's guidance. I ask my inner voice every day, every morning, what is the one thing I can do to get me closer to my goals and dreams? One thing. Not what are the 10 things or what are all the things I can do today. Just one thing. And I might do more, I might record a podcast, and I might have client calls, and I might work on some other things. But I always, and it's a habit I've picked up from one of my mentors, and it's been serving me really well to just ask every morning to avoid the overwhelm. Just what is the one thing I can do today? And I'm gonna leave you with that. All the other things I said before, working through the mindset and the limiting beliefs and healing the witch wound and working with your cycles and so on and so on. If you want to listen back to it once more, go back and listen to it once more. But the most important thing is to listen to your inner voice, listen to your body, and ask what the messages are and where it is guiding you, what is it telling you, and what you need to change, what you can change, what you can tweak, what you can do differently to heal this symptom or heal this feeling of overwhelm, or feel this feeling of not feeling good enough, or whatever it is for you. So I'm gonna leave you with that. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this episode, please rate and review, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. And if this resonated with you, I would love you if you would tag me on Instagram and share the episode on IG stories, or send me a DM and let me know what resonated with you. And if you haven't joined the waitlist for Conscious Healing Blueprint, I will include the link in the show notes. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. And I will talk to you again very soon. Sending you so much love from my heart to yours. Have a good day. Have a good week. Bye-bye.